Good morning, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. What a good-looking bunch. This week's parashah is called Toldot, and it's found in Genesis chapters 25 to 27, and it tells the tale of the two children born to Isaac and Rebekah, Esau and Jacob. And it's a hugely prophetic parashah, and it presents some fascinating ethical dilemmas as we reflect on the motives and behavior of these characters. So it begins as Rebekah, who is barren, conceives, but it's a difficult pregnancy and the children struggle within her. So she goes to inquire of the Lord, chapter 25, verse 3. And the Lord said to her, 23, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. Rebekah would bear 2 sons, each of whom would sire a nation, and these 2 nations would be eternal adversaries. So even when the twins are born, immediately there's a marked contrast between them. And the first came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over, so they called his name Esau. Afterward, his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Yaakov. It's related to the Hebrew word akev, which means heel. So it's a name that reminds us of the struggle between good and evil that began in the Garden of Eden, and the punishment given to the serpent, that the seed of the woman should bruise its head, but the serpent should bruise his heel. Jacob's destiny is to contend against evil, and even before his birth, he begins to fulfill that role. And as the boys grow up, the differences in their personalities are also very marked. Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a mild man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Esau reminds us of Nimrod, who was famed as a ruthless hunter. Jacob is described as Ish Tam, which can be understood as a simple or perfect man. The 2 young men also held different places in their parents' affections. That leads to the next stage in their story. Now, Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary." The Hebrew, in English it's a little bit different. In Hebrew, actually, Esau says, "Give me some of that red." And anyone in Israel will know, if you're talking about red, it's referring to Esau's, the lentil stew that Jacob made. And also the other word that he uses, halatani, which actually means pour it into my mouth. So actually he's saying, let me gulp down that red. So we're learning a bit about Esau. And this red symbol is all the way through the story. But Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright as of this day." And Esau said, "Look, I'm about to die. What use is this birthright to me?" And Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then we have 5 verbs like this. Esau ate, drank, rose, went, and despised his birthright. But what did that birthright mean to Esau? He would have known of the covenant God made with Abraham and the promise of great blessing to his descendants. But he would also have known that before these blessings came, there would be an extended period of slavery. Esau would not willingly submit to that. The birthright means nothing to him because it's talking about the future, not the present. Esau's philosophy is live for today because tomorrow I might die. It's a way of life that revolves around this idea of instant gratification. And when you think about it, it's really an idea that society is embracing today in a very big way. So there have been 2 encounters between the brothers, and now comes the third, and it's the most problematic. We go to chapter 27. Isaac calls Esau and sends him out secretly to hunt for game. So much secrecy in this family. To make savory food so Isaac may eat and bless Esau before he dies. But Rebekah overhears the plan, and I was remembering Sarah listening at the tent. And immediately she swings into action. So Rebekah spoke to Jacob, saying, "Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, that he may eat it, and that he may bless you before his death." Rebekah's plan was detailed, complete, and she had no hesitation. We tend to ask how Jacob could deceive his father, but the real question is about Rebekah. Was her plan? What was driving her? Was it the oracle? Was it her love for Jacob? And how is it she cannot talk to Isaac? When Jacob raises concerns, what if Isaac is not deceived? What if he touches my skin and realizes I'm not Esau? Her reply is brief and to the point. "Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go get them for me." So Jacob went to his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it you have found it so quickly, my son?" Isaac, blind and elderly by this point, is taken aback by the speed with which his son has fulfilled his requests. So he asks, "How did you get it so quickly?" And Jacob said, "Because the Lord your God brought it to me." Again, Isaac seems troubled by this strange response. Is Esau really talking about God? He asks his son to come near so he can feel his skin. But Rebekah had prepared for that possibility by placing hairy skins on Yaakov's arms. So Jacob drew close to his father Isaac, who felt him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, yet the hands are the hands of Esau." The rabbis say the voice of Jacob and the hands of Esau are symbols. Hands are a symbol of force, but the voice is ruach, air or spirit, that symbolizes prayer and the hidden life. And so the momentous event takes place. Isaac gives Jacob the blessing intended for Esau. He says, first of all, "May God give you from the dew of the heavens and the fat of the earth and fullness of grain and wine." That's about material prosperity. "Nations will be subservient to you and peoples will bow to you. You will be your brother's master and the sons of your mother will bow to you." That's about power. So it's a very beautiful blessing, but there's no mention of the covenant blessings God had given Abraham, which were about children and a land. The result is that the son who seeks simplicity and spiritual goals receives the blessing of the son who is concerned only with the instant life of prosperity and power. The next dramatic scene unfolds. Now it happened, as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac, his father. We're talking with Mike about funny movies. You can almost see this in a funny movie. Anyway, but it turns out tragically. Esau, his brother, came in from his hunting. He also had made savory food and brought it to his father and said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me." And his father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" So he said, "I'm your son, your firstborn, Esau." Then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, "Who? Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him. and indeed he shall be blessed. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, "Bless me, me also, O my father." Isaac trembled exceedingly. This is a very strong phrase in the Hebrew. It means literally, he shuddered in great terror. It's the word used to describe how Mount Sinai shook violently when the Lord descended upon it. It suggests that this was what we might call an apocalyptic moment. Heaven is unveiling a hidden reality to the eyes of faith. And what did blind Isaac see? Perhaps in a flash of insight from outside time, he saw the whole of the future unfolding. He understood the great enmity that would arise between the nations that would come from these two men, that would cause bitter suffering to the end of days. The giveaway phrase is found in Esau's reaction to Jacob's deception, his loud and bitter cry. The only other time in the Hebrew scriptures this phrase is found is in the book of Esther, when Mordecai learns of the plot to annihilate the Jewish people in Persia at the instigation of Haman, the descendant of Amalek. That's when Mordecai utters another loud and bitter cry. The truth is that the spirit of Esau and his descendant Amalek would wage war against the chosen seed until the coming of Messiah, and we are seeing it still more than ever in this present day. But even as Isaac foresaw all these things in that moment, he made no attempt to revoke the blessing from Jacob, but rather confirmed it. But that still leaves us with the overriding question: was Jacob right to take Esau's blessing in disguise? And that involves the deepest issues of moral life. And the Torah goes on to suggest that the consequences of Jacob's actions haunt him for the rest of his days. First, he had to flee from Esau's anger and was in exile for 20 years. While in Laban's home, he suffered an almost identical deceit practiced against him when Leah was substituted for Rachel. That in turn caused continuing strife between his wives and children, and he was deceived yet again, this time by his sons, when they brought him Joseph's blood-stained robe. We see the same threads weaving their way through these stories: the disguises, the deception, even the goats. Such are the tragic results that occur when we don't trust God to fulfill his promises and take matters in our own hands. So many lives were scarred by that one act, and it was not even necessary, because Isaac understood perfectly about his two sons, and he always intended to give Jacob the spiritual blessing of land and children, and that's what he does before Isaac leaves home. So the complexity of Jacob's existence began with that act of deception, and it took him a lifetime to come to terms with what had happened and to develop into the character of one who could bestow that blessing. When we turn to the New Testament, we find that Jesus predicts a time of calamity before the coming of the Son of Man, when the love of many will grow cold, and a man's enemies will be members of his household. Jacob's life, his struggle with Esau, his many travails allude to those difficult days of tribulation that will come on the world and on the people of Israel before the coming of Messiah. And it's during this period that more than ever, spiritual Israel, those who have no right in themselves to the inheritance, lay hold of the bruised heel of Jesus. We learn to follow in the footsteps of Christ crucified, the one who has crushed the head of the serpent for us, and to be counted among those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. Thank you, everyone.